Okay, good afternoon. Let's dive in. So Richard Knutson here. Welcome to session 3 of the Building Business with CRM, for short, the CRMBizBook webinar series. Here's my contact information. I run the CRM practice at a Microsoft-centric IT consulting firm called Magenium Solutions in beautiful Wheaton, Illinois. That's our website, magenium.com. My website, the blog, where I post most of the content that's kind of related to things like what we'll talk about today. That's the Dynamic CRM Trick Bag. And if you are interested in the stuff that we're going to talk about today, kind of things in my book, you'll also likely be interested in the content that's in the CRM Field Guide. It's another book that just came out. I co-authored that with a number of my friends from the MVP community for CRM. So the Field Guide is a tome. It's like almost 1,000 pages, and there's a bunch of stuff in there. It's a pretty good book, so check it out. But let's talk about the webinar series for a minute. So let me just kind of give you the background around this. If you're first timers, welcome. If you're back for more, appreciate that too. So these 90-minute webinars, they really are designed to go along with the book, to add value to the contents of the book. And we'll use basically the structure of the book will drive the sessions, review the highlights of each chapter, and we will spend some time working with the solutions that are part of what you get with the book. Not everything we do, like today I'm going to go through a number of things that are definitely related to the content in chapters 3 and 4 in the book, but I'll go through some things that are slight variations on that. But the idea is to teach you how to do this stuff. These sessions are open enrollment. Everybody's welcome to attend. And the one thing that you get only with the purchase of the book is the solutions that are basically there's a separate solution package for each chapter. And that comes with the purchase of the book. And the thing about that is you only get the solutions if you purchase through that CRMBizBook site. So if you did get the book, for example, on Amazon, you can still get the solutions. Just contact Joy at it's my publisher's firm, Colorado Technical Consulting. So it's jgarskadden at coloradotc.com if you've got the book and don't have the solutions. So let's get to what we're going to talk about today. So session 3, I'm going to talk about monitoring and troubleshooting. I wouldn't want to have you go much farther than what we've done so far if you don't know some basics of monitoring troubleshooting. So I'm just going to go through a couple of basic things there. And there's a chapter in the book where I really develop this in a lot more detail. So a little bit later, I think chapter 6 or 7. But I want to give you a preview of that today, kind of give you some basics on that. I want to revisit a topic that we've talked about, weights and timeouts. There's a couple of interesting things that I appreciate more fully than I did, and I want to just make sure this comes out a little bit better than it did in the book. That's what second editions are for. Anyway, I want to talk about child workflow processes. And that is a good lead-in, and you'll see why, to what we'll conclude today's session with, which is introduction to dialogue processes. So that is where we're going. Okay, so let's talk about monitoring and troubleshooting, topic 1. So there's lots of ways of monitoring, and specifically workflows here. Dialogue processes are a little bit different in this regard, and we'll talk about that too. But you can there's a couple of easy ways to monitor. You can simply go to a workflow, the actual workflow process, and you can see all of the jobs that have run for that process from the workflow record. You could go, for example, to a record that has a workflow that's been written for it, say a case record, and you can see all of the workflow jobs that have run for that specific record. So any of the different, there may be multiple processes that have run against that. Or you can use advanced find to query system jobs. And that's what I want to talk about today. That's a little bit less obvious. A workflow definition, when you write a workflow, or in the process designer and saving something and activating it, maybe that's a process. But an instance of a workflow, that is a workflow that has run or is running, that's a system job. System jobs in Dynamic CRM specifically refer to asynchronous processes, and workflows are asynchronous. And what we want is we want to do an advanced find where system job type is equal to workflow, and maybe something like status reason equals waiting. We can see all the workflows that are in a wait state. And there's a lot more you can do with this, but I want to introduce that today just to make sure that you have that kind of starter knowledge. And we'll develop this in more detail. So here's an example of what an advanced find view might look like. We'll go into that in a second. Okay, so a couple of things about system jobs. They're a little different from other record types because they're not customizable. You can't add charts or custom views, for example, to the system job record type. And the system job record type, it's not exposed through the UI anywhere. It's not like you go to settings and see a link for system jobs. You have to go into advanced find to find it. You can create personal views, and you can create reports on it. So we're going to look at this in a minute. But specifically, when you're monitoring and troubleshooting, what are you going to be looking for? And this is especially important if you have long-running system jobs. A couple of the examples that we've looked at in the previous sessions are candidates for long-running jobs. Maybe a sales process. Hopefully not a case resolution process. That's a bad thing if case resolution process is a long-running job. But a sales process might be. You could very well have some organizations, you might have sales processes that take 6 months or 12 months, and you could certainly have a workflow that runs that long. But not all old jobs that are waiting are necessarily good things. There might be a reason that it's sitting there waiting, and not for a good. I'll show you examples of that. Another candidate that you want to look for is some point-in-time processes that are in a wait state. So what I mean by point-in-time, suppose you have a workflow process that you've designed to run, and it really is supposed to just happen. Like an autoresponder is a good example of that. If you've got an autoresponder workflow that's sitting there in a wait state, that's not much of an autoresponder, right? So it's probably an indication that there's either a logical problem or some sort of a runtime problem. Another sort of a visual cue that I look for is if you have lots of waiting jobs on the same day. Suppose there was a system outage and you had a whole bunch of processes that were running and all ran into some kind of problem or something like that. You can also look at interesting values in the error code or message fields, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that next. Something like this would be a good example, and I'm going to show you how you do things like this in a second. Basically, this is the results of an advanced find view on the system job. You can see it up there. See the dates they started. And I can see that I can query these things by the system job type. That's your workflow. I can see these all have a status of waiting, and they've all got error codes, which isn't necessarily a good thing. And you can see that here. So generally speaking, you don't want to see anything in that error code column. And again, these are all just columns on the system job type that can be useful for this. So let me show you a demonstration of this. And again, we're going to go through this in more details in a subsequent session. So what I want to show you here, key things in this demonstration, are that system jobs aren't exposed through the UI, so you need to go find them. You can go into advanced find, but then you can do things like save a view and use that view to create a dashboard, say, or create a report. So let's go take a look at this. And some things I'm going to show here I've got a demo environment here, but some things are better shown in production. And this is one of those. So what I'm going to do here is so you can kind of see the distinction. This is my Magenium's production CRM. It's in the cloud. And just to show you, let's suppose I go to a different dashboard. I'll just drop down so here's my dashboard drop-down menu. And if I scroll down to the bottom of this list under the personal dashboards, notice I've got this workflow process monitor. That's this dashboard here. Okay, here's what this dashboard does. Now, what is this dashboard? Kind of looks probably pretty similar to the screenshot I just showed you. And what this is, these are system jobs. There's system job type workflow. You can see what they're regarding. And these have one thing in common. They have a status reason of waiting. Everybody see that? So how would you how would you get some insight into something like this? Let's take a step back and let's just go into advanced find. Suppose I'm anywhere, say in sales, contacts. So just to show you how this works. So I could be looking at any grid. If I go into advanced find, if you don't know advanced find, you should definitely learn it. It's a very good thing to know about. But for now, I want to go through this quickly. So I navigate into advanced find, and what I want to do is go to system jobs. So that's the record type that I want to query if I want to monitor workflow processes. And in particular, what I want to do is choose system job type equals. And you can see these things here. These are all the different asynchronous jobs that CRM can do. And in particular, I'm interested in workflows. So we've got a lot of them running here. So I don't want to see all of them. I'm interested specifically in system jobs where the status reason is equal to waiting, or maybe waiting for resources. Sometimes that can be a red flag. If something failed, that might be good to know about, but usually what I'll do is I might have a different dashboard for something like failed jobs. Typically, if I want to see something that's stalled out, at least it's something I can do something about, so I might do something like that. And if I click results here, I can see all this stuff. Right now, another thing I can do though is save that view. So I get the view tweaked, and what I would do is typically save it. Now, the interesting thing about system jobs, I told you can't customize it. So I can't create a new system view for system jobs. I can only create personal views. So I have something like workflow jobs waiting or workflow jobs completed more than 1 month ago. So here's my workflow jobs waiting. So here's this view that I tweaked and got it just the way I wanted it. And if I was going to create a new dashboard for this, I would probably do something like this. Choose the 3-column overview, because what I want is a big list, and I'll call this test because I'm going to get rid of it in a second. And what I'll do is I'm going to delete each of these, the ones on the top. So let's just delete this, delete this, delete this. Now I'm going to take this tab, push it down because I want this thing on top. And I'm going to increase the height of this because I want one single big list here. Okay, so then I'll go down here, and the thing that I want on this dashboard is a list, and the list is going to be based on this record type system jobs, and there are my personal views. So here's my workflow jobs waiting, and now I'm basically done, other than the bogus name there. I can make this as big as I want it. So if I save and close this thing, so that's how you create something like this. So all you do here is now the query applies this. You've got all your workflow jobs right here, and I'm not going to go through all of the details on this yet, but here's what I look for. Notice I've got update activity counter for completed task all on the same day. So 9/27, we had a whole bunch of those things for bounced emails. So a task gets assigned and somebody gets notified and an activity counter gets updated. But there's all these workflows at the same time. And this isn't a workflow that should wait. This is a point-in-time workflow. So in this case, normally I would do a little bit more than this, but one of the things ultimately you can do is if it's a runtime problem, you could go, maybe it's a permissions issue or something like that. I could go fix it and then resume these things. But right now, what I'll just do is cancel those things. So some of these things should be waiting, but a lot of these things should not be. So that's kind of a quick little example of how you can do some monitoring of those using the system job type combined with a custom view and a dashboard. You could also write reports for these things too. Generally speaking, it's going to be one of those two things if you want to do some monitoring.